My best friend, Aaron, was already online. His voice came through the headset, easy and familiar. "Dude, you ready? We're down one player, so don't choke." I laughed on cue.
Yeah.
Let's just not lose again." My voice sounded normal to him, but to me, it carried the faint ache of pretending. We played for hours, the rhythm of combat and banter filling the space where thoughts usually crept in. But somewhere between matches, I caught myself staring at my avatar during the victory animation. She blinked, smiled shyly, her pose modest but confident. Something about her expression disarmed me. "Hey, you alive?" Aaron's voice broke through.
Huh?
"Yeah, just thinking." "About what? You sounded weird." I scrambled for something casual. "Just tired. Need coffee or something." He laughed, letting it go, and I felt that mixture of relief and guilt twist inside me. Relief that he didn't notice. Guilt that I wanted him not to notice. Later that night, when the team logged off, I stayed behind. My fingers hovered over the character customization screen. I adjusted her hair slightly, softened the eyes, changed the shade of her lipstick. The act felt almost sacred. Every tweak, every small decision was a quiet rebellion against everything I'd been told to be. The next day, I couldn't shake it anymore. The makeup kit called to me again, not with the same trembling fear as before, but with a kind of calm inevitability. I sat down in front of the mirror, this time in daylight. My hands still shook a little, but my breathing was steady. I didn't try to mimic anyone else, no tutorials, no references. I just followed instinct. A touch of foundation, a hint of blush, a line of eyeliner that wobbled slightly, but somehow made my eyes look softer. When I finally looked up, I didn't laugh this time. I didn't hide. The reflection staring back looked scared. Yes, but also alive. I heard footsteps outside my door. Panic jolted through me. I scrambled, wiping at my face with tissues that only smeared the makeup worse. The doorknob turned halfway, and my mom's voice floated through, gentle but too close. "Sweetheart, dinner's ready." "Okay," I said too quickly, voice cracking. The door didn't open, but I heard her pause. Then, quietly, "You doing okay in there?" I froze. My heart pounded so loud, I was sure she could hear it. "Yeah, just gaming," I managed to say. Another pause. Then, "All right. Don't forget to eat, okay?" The sound of her footsteps retreating left me shaken. The word she'd used, sweetheart. It was nothing unusual. She'd always called me that. But in that moment, the word landed differently, echoing deep inside like it meant something new. I cleaned my face again, but as I wiped the last traces of makeup away, I whispered to my reflection, "One day, I won't have to hide you." And the reflection smiled back, not fully, not confidently, but enough to promise me that maybe, someday, that would be true. I started avoiding mirrors. Not because I hated what I saw, but because every glance pulled me back into the same tug-of-war I couldn't escape. The boy everyone saw was still there, joking in chats, trash-talking during matches, pretending to be carefree, but each day, it felt like I was performing lines from a script that had stopped fitting the story. School was simple enough to navigate. I was quiet, not invisible, but close. I had my group of friends who knew me as the tech guy, the one who could fix a glitch, build a PC, or explain any game mechanic. No one ever asked much beyond that. And I liked it that way. Anonymity was safety. But after that night, after seeing myself differently, the quiet started to feel more like loneliness. When people looked at me, it wasn't me they saw. It was a version of me built from expectations, low voice, baggy clothes, confident smirk. Every morning, putting on that disguise felt heavier, like I was pressing pause on the part of me that wanted to breathe. One afternoon, while waiting for my ride, I scrolled through my phone and opened the front camera by accident. The lighting was terrible, my face half-shadowed, but something about that raw, unposed reflection caught me off guard. I tilted my head slightly and thought about the girl in the mirror, the one I'd seen only in private. What if she didn't need to be hidden? What if I let her peek through? Even a little. That evening, I tried something small. I tied my hair differently, just a tiny ponytail, Nothing obvious. Then I changed my hoodie for one in soft pastel colors that I'd always liked but never worn outside. I didn't tell myself it meant anything. I just said I was experimenting. But when I looked in a mirror, it was impossible to ignore the flicker of warmth in my chest. It wasn't transformation. It was relief. Later that night, Aaron called. "Hey, hop on," he said. "We're trying out a new mode. Need our best support." I smiled, plugging in my headset. My best support was my female avatar. Of course, the shy, quiet character that had started to feel more and more like me. We played for hours, laughter filling the silence I'd carried all day. Somewhere in the middle of the match, another player joined. Someone new. Her voice was soft, confident, and distinctly feminine. She called me she by accident when giving game directions, probably because of my character's name. Aaron immediately jumped in, laughing. "She? Nah, that's a dude, trust me." It was a throwaway comment, casual and harmless. But something inside me stung. I laughed too, because that's what I always did, because laughing was safer than silence. But the word "she" lingered in my head long after the match ended. It felt right in a way that scared me. When the game finally shut down for the night, I stared at my reflection in the black screen. For the first time, I whispered it out loud, not to test it, not as a joke, but as if confessing something sacred. She. It was small, shaky, but it felt like the truest thing I'd ever said. The next day, I did something impulsive. I took a picture. Not the kind I usually sent to friends, not a silly selfie or a filtered joke, but a quiet, tentative photo of me wearing the pastel hoodie, with a little bit of eyeliner I'd practiced the night before. My hair wasn't perfect, my expression uncertain, but my eyes looked alive. I saved it in a hidden folder. I didn't plan to share it, just to have proof that she existed. Days passed. I started sneaking bits of her into my life, subtle things no one else noticed. Clear nail polish, slightly softer shirts, a new sensitivity in the way I moved, spoke, smiled. Each change made the armor crack just a little more, and beneath it, something fragile and beautiful began to breathe. But the world doesn't always stay quiet when you start changing, even if you try to do it in silence. One evening, I was sitting in the living room with my mom when she looked up from her phone and said casually, "You seem different lately." My heart skipped. Different how? She smiled faintly. Happier, maybe. Softer. I blinked, unsure whether to feel seen or exposed. "Is that bad?" "Not at all," she said simply. "It suits you." I wanted to ask her what she meant, but I didn't. I couldn't. Not yet. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the faint glow of my monitor. My reflection stared back in the dark glass, half shadowed, half revealed. For the first time, I didn't feel trapped between two versions of myself. I felt like both could exist in the same space. Not a boy pretending to be a girl, or a gamer hiding from the world, but just me, still figuring it out. And yet, under the calm, something restless was growing. A quiet urge for others to see her too, to be called she without correction, to exist beyond the mirror and the monitor glow. I didn't know how or when that would happen. But I knew one thing for certain. The shy girl inside me wasn't going back into hiding. The first time someone called me pretty, it wasn't even on purpose. It was just a casual, passing comment in an online chat. I had changed my profile picture, the same soft, hidden photo I'd taken weeks ago. Not a full face shot, just the lower half, with that faint shimmer of gloss still on my lips. I didn't expect anyone to notice. But someone did. A stranger in the group typed, "Cute pic, BTW. You look sweet." I froze. Aaron saw it too. "Wait, who's that?" he asked, his tone teasing. "You got a secret girlfriend or something?" My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I could have deleted the photo in an instant. I could have laughed it off. But something in me didn't want to hide this time. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Nah," I typed, my hands trembling slightly. "Just me." There was a pause in the chat, a silence that stretched too long. Then Aaron sent a single emoji, a surprised face, followed by a LOL, that tried to smooth over the weirdness.
Oh, wow.
Didn't expect that, he said through voice chat, his tone lighter now. You experimenting or something? I forced a laugh. Yeah, kind of. Just for fun. He chuckled.
Fair.
Honestly, looks good, though. You've got the face for it. I didn't know how to respond to that. My throat tightened. For him, it was probably just a throwaway compliment. But for me, it hit somewhere deep, a spot I didn't even know had been starving for affirmation. That night, I couldn't stop replaying his words. You've got the face for it. It felt like permission I didn't ask for, but desperately needed. Days turned into a quiet rhythm. School, home, game, mirror. But my reflection wasn't just a private world anymore. It was starting to spill into little corners of my life. Soft colors sneaking into my wardrobe, gentler tones in my voice, the subtle confidence that came from not pretending as hard. I'd catch glimpses of myself in windows, reflections off car doors, phone screens. And every time, I'd pause, just for a heartbeat, to whisper internally, she's still there. Then one afternoon, the balance tipped. It was after class. The sky was gray, the kind of color that makes everything feel like it's holding its breath. I was heading out when one of the girls from my programming group, Leah, walked beside me. She'd always been kind, the type who laughed softly and noticed details. I like your hoodie, she said, glancing over. I blinked. Oh, thanks. It's new. It's cute, she added. You've got good color sense. That word, cute, hit like a pulse through my chest. I smiled, maybe too quickly. Thanks. She smiled back. You should come out with us sometime. We usually get coffee after class. I hesitated. Me? Yeah, she said with a shrug. You're quiet, but you seem nice. It'd be fun. For a second, I couldn't speak. I wasn't used to being invited, let alone like this. Something in her tone wasn't mocking. It was genuine light. I nodded before I could overthink it.
Sure. Yeah.
I'd like that. That night, I stared at my closet for what felt like hours. I didn't own anything fancy, nothing that really matched who I wanted to be. My clothes were still the old me, dark, loose, neutral. But then my eyes caught the pastel hoodie again. I picked it up, smoothing the fabric between my fingers. Maybe it was enough. Maybe I was enough. When I met up with him the next day, my heart was pounding so loud I thought everyone could hear it. But Leah smiled the moment she saw me. Hey, you made it. Her warmth disarmed me instantly. Sitting there in the coffee shop, surrounded by her laughter and the easy comfort of conversation, I felt something shift. I didn't have to play a role. I didn't have to filter myself. For the first time, I wasn't acting like the boy I thought they expected. I was just me, quiet, soft-spoken, nervous, but real. At one point, Leah looked at me with an expression that felt almost curious. You know, she said, you've got this really gentle energy. Like you'd be such a good listener. Not many guys do that. I smiled faintly, my voice barely above a whisper. Maybe I'm not like most guys. She tilted her head, her expression unreadable for a moment, then smiled back softly. Yeah. I think you're not. That night, I replayed that line over and over until it was no longer a question but a quiet truth echoing inside me. I'm not like most guys. And maybe, finally, that was something I could start to be proud of. The next few weeks blurred together, like a dream that refused to fade. I started spending more time with Leah and her group after class, not because I planned to, but because it felt safe. They were easy to be around, kind in the small ways that mattered most. And for once, I didn't feel like I was standing outside looking in. Every time Leah smiled at me across a table, or gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her face while talking, something quiet inside me ached, not in envy, but in recognition. I saw in her the grace I felt growing somewhere deep within myself, waiting for permission to exist. But there was always the whisper of fear beneath it all. I knew how fragile this balance was. One wrong word, one curious glance, and the illusion could shatter. So I learned to live in the in-between, soft enough to feel like me, careful enough to stay unnoticed. At home, though, the line between those worlds kept fading. My reflection had become a constant companion now. I stopped treating makeup like a secret sin and started treating it like art, quiet, deliberate, deeply personal. The girl who looked back at me wasn't fully formed yet, but she was real enough that I spoke to her sometimes. Not out loud, just in my head. Whispered conversations that no one would ever hear. I didn't call her by a name, not yet. Naming her felt too final, too irreversible. But I felt her growing stronger every day, her voice becoming clearer with every small act of self-kindness. Then one evening, everything almost unraveled. Aaron showed up unannounced. I was in my room, mid-transformation, not a full look, just subtle eyeliner, a bit of foundation, and a soft pink hoodie I'd borrowed from my sister's old clothes. I hadn't heard him knocking until he was already inside.
Yo.
"You alive?" he called from the hallway. My heart froze. I scrambled to wipe my face, but panic made my hands clumsy. "One SEC." I shouted, my voice trembling. He pushed the door open before I could finish. "Man, you always take." He stopped mid-sentence. For a second, the air between us went completely still. His eyes flicked from my face to the makeup kit on the desk, to the faint blush on my cheeks, then back to me. I didn't breathe. He blinked, confused but not cruel. "Wait, what's going on?" There were 100 things I could have said. A joke. A denial. Anything. But instead, words just slipped out before I could catch them. I don't know. I just like it, I guess." His brow furrowed, and then, to my surprise, softened. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not judging. Just wasn't expecting that." He laughed, awkward but genuine, scratching the back of his neck.
You do you, man.
Or, whatever you want to be. The way he said it made me want to cry, not because it hurt, but because it was the first time someone had left space for me to exist without demanding an explanation. "Thanks," I whispered, eyes lowered. He nodded, glancing around the room again. "You actually look kinda good, not gonna lie. Like, if I didn't know you, I'd probably..." He cut himself off with a chuckle. "Never mind. Anyway, we still gaming tonight?" That question broke the tension instantly. The absurd normalcy of it made me laugh, really laugh. "Yeah," I said softly. "We are." Later that night, as we played, I noticed something different in his tone. He didn't tease me about my avatar anymore. He didn't flinch at the pronouns or the softness of my voice when I spoke. He just treated me like me. Maybe that was enough for now. But when the match ended and the screen dimmed, I sat there in the glow of the monitor, heart still racing from earlier. For the first time, the fear of being found out had turned into something else, a quiet relief. Someone had seen me, and the world hadn't ended. When I finally crawled into bed, I whispered to the darkness, "Maybe she's strong enough now. Maybe I'm ready to stop hiding from her." The silence of my room answered softly, like an exhale after years of holding breath. For the next few days, the world felt strangely lighter. I kept waiting for the panic to return, that cold rush of shame that usually followed any time someone saw even a hint of who I really was. But it didn't. Aaron hadn't treated me differently. He hadn't told anyone. The sky hadn't fallen. That single fact made everything else feel possible in ways I hadn't dared imagine. I started waking up earlier, sitting by the window before the day got loud. Morning light was kind. It didn't demand explanations. It just touched everything equally. The mascara tube on my desk, the keyboard with faded WASD keys, the reflection that was slowly becoming more familiar. But every quiet victory brought new questions with it. If the girl in the mirror was becoming real, what did that mean for the boy the world knew? Was I erasing him, or finally letting him rest? I didn't have answers, just the constant rhythm of transformation. Small, private, unremarkable acts that felt monumental to me. One weekend, Leah texted, "Coffee plus coding session? Bring your laptop computer." My stomach fluttered. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back a simple sure. It wasn't just an invitation, it was a test. Could I be around people like this now, carrying both versions of myself without cracking? When I arrived, she was already there, cross-legged on a couch with a caramel latte balanced dangerously close to her keyboard. "Hey," You look nice today, she said without even glancing up from the screen. My breath caught. Thanks, I managed. I'd done nothing dramatic, just soft hair, clear skin, the faintest tint of lip balm, but she noticed anyway. Hours passed easily. We talked, laughed, solved code that refused to compile, shared quiet eye contact when a joke landed perfectly. At one point, she leaned over to show me a line on her screen, her hair brushing my shoulder, and I felt this sudden, dizzy warmth, not attraction exactly, more like recognition again, this strange kinship of softness. When the cafe closed, she walked with me to the bus stop. You seem more comfortable lately, she said. Like you finally exhaled after holding your breath forever. I stared at the pavement. Maybe I did. She nodded, a tiny smile playing on her lips. Whatever you're figuring out, don't rush it. Just be kind to yourself, okay? Those words followed me all the way home. Be kind to yourself. They felt like permission, the kind that didn't need labels yet, just honesty. That night, I opened my closet again. My old clothes hung there like ghosts of a life that had already ended. I didn't throw them out. I just pushed them to one side and made a small space for something new, a soft blouse I'd bought quietly online, hidden beneath a hoodie on its way into the house. I ran my fingers along the fabric and felt the thrum of something both terrifying and right. When I finally tried it on, it didn't transform me instantly. It didn't erase the fear or uncertainty. But it did something gentler. It allowed me to exist between breaths, between names, between worlds. The next day, Aaron messaged. You good?
You've been quiet.
I smiled at the screen. Yeah, I typed just learning to be okay with things. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji, simple and unspoken. The way guys communicate feelings they don't have words for. And somehow, that tiny digital gesture felt like the beginning of acceptance. Not from him. Not even from anyone else, but from myself. I went to sleep that night with the blouse folded neatly beside my bed. The girl in the mirror wasn't a secret anymore. She was a story still being written, one heartbeat at a time. The first morning I wore the blouse outside, the air itself felt different, cooler, sharper, almost aware of me. It wasn't a statement piece. No one passing on the street would stop to stare. But the fabric moved differently when I walked, light against my skin instead of heavy. For once, my reflection in the bus window didn't feel like camouflage. No one said anything at school. That was the miracle of big, distracted hallways. Everyone's too busy performing their own version of normal to notice someone else's. Still, I caught a few lingering glances from classmates who probably couldn't place what had changed. A few smiled politely, nothing more. I breathed through the quiet panic that followed each glance and kept walking. By the time classes ended, something strange had happened. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was exhausted, yes, but there was a calm underneath it. I'd stepped into the world as myself, even if no one recognized it, and the sky hadn't fallen. That evening, Aaron pinged me again. Game later? Or are you hanging with your coffee crew? I smiled at the teasing quotation marks. I can play. When we logged in, he sounded more relaxed than usual. Between matches, he said, So, you've been different lately. Happier, I think. Is that bad? No, he said quickly. It's cool. You used to talk like you were hiding behind jokes. Now you actually talk. His words landed softly. Maybe he didn't fully understand, but somehow he still saw what mattered most, that I was showing up as someone real. A few nights later, Leah invited me to a weekend movie night with her friends. I almost said no. The idea of being in a room full of people, even kind ones, made my pulse skip. But she sent a smiley face afterward that felt like a promise. You'll be fine. At her apartment, fairy lights framed the windows, and the smell of popcorn filled the air. Her friends were sprawled across blankets, laughing about something trivial. I sat near the edge of the group at first, unsure where to fit, until Leah tossed me a pillow and said, You sit here. Best spot. Halfway through the movie she whispered, See? Not so scary. I smiled. You were right. It was such a simple exchange, but inside it felt like I'd crossed a line I'd drawn around my whole life. When the night ended and I stepped outside, the city was half asleep. Streetlights glowed like soft halos in puddles from an earlier rain. My reflection appeared faintly in every window I passed, each one a different version of me, overlapping and fading, none of them wrong. I didn't feel like I was pretending anymore. I didn't feel like I was rebelling either. I just felt aligned, like I'd finally turned toward something that had been calling my name for years. Before sleeping, I wrote a single sentence in my journal, something I'd never written before because it had always felt too big to claim. I'm not building someone new. I'm uncovering who was here all along. I stared at those words until the ink dried. Then I whispered to the ceiling, barely audible but real enough to feel true. Good night, girl. And for once, I didn't flinch at the sound of it. The next few weeks blurred into something quietly beautiful. It wasn't dramatic, not the kind of shift anyone would write songs about, but for me, it felt monumental. I found myself humming in the mornings, brushing my hair with a patience I never used to have, layering small rituals into my day that made me feel more me. Leah became the kind of friend who didn't just see me, she read me. She'd send messages like, "You wore that soft pink again, didn't you?" And she'd be right, even without seeing me. I didn't tell her that sometimes I stood in front of my mirror before school and whispered her name for courage. One day after class, Aaron and I met at the local arcade. We hadn't hung out in person for weeks. I almost didn't recognize him. He'd cut his hair, gotten taller somehow. When he saw me, his grin faltered for half a heartbeat before returning, but that pause said everything. "Wow," he said. "You look different." Good different or weird different? He shrugged, still smiling. "You look happy. That's what counts." We played the same games we'd always played, but something subtle had shifted between us. He didn't tease me about my quietness anymore, didn't try to fill the silences. When he lost, he leaned back and said, "You've gotten better." I laughed softly. Guess I had more time to practice. But what I really meant was, I've been learning to live, not just play. That night, Leah called me while I was taking off my makeup. "You know," she said, her tone light but careful, "you don't have to keep this separate forever." Separate? Your two lives, the gamer boy and the shy girl. Maybe it's time to stop choosing between them. I didn't know what to say. I'd built my safety on separation. One version online, another offline, both fragile, both incomplete. The idea of merging them terrified me. But even through the fear, something inside me stirred, like a locked door shifting. Later, when Aaron texted, "You okay? You seemed quiet today," I almost replied with the truth, almost told him everything. But instead I wrote, "Yeah, just thinking a lot." His reply came fast. "Thinking means change is coming. You've always been good at adapting." Adapting. The word stung and soothed all at once. I didn't want to adapt anymore. I wanted to exist. That night, I opened my stream camera for the first time in months. My hands shook as I adjusted the lighting. I'd changed so much since the last time anyone saw me. My reflection looked softer now, same face, same eyes, but somehow entirely new. I whispered, "Hey, everyone," to the empty screen, practicing, rehearsing, daring myself. And in that moment, as my own voice echoed back, I realized something beautiful and terrifying. I wasn't pretending to be a girl online anymore. I was her. I didn't plan to go live that night. It just happened. My finger hovered over the start stream button for what felt like an eternity, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I clicked. The screen lit up. My own face appeared in the tiny corner box, soft curls framing it, eyeliner trembling slightly from my shaky hands. The chat window began to fill with the familiar names of my small community. "Yo, long time no see. Is that you? Whoa, you look different today." I smiled nervously. "Hey, everyone. Yeah, it's still me. Just maybe a bit more honest this time." There was a silence, and then the kindest flood of words. "You look amazing. So proud of you." We missed this energy. The warmth was overwhelming. I blinked quickly, pretending the moisture in my eyes was from the light. We played for hours, and for once, I didn't have to disguise my voice. I laughed when I wanted to, paused when I felt shy, and never once felt the need to retreat behind the old version of me. Somewhere in the middle of the match, Aaron's username popped up in the chat. My pulse spiked. "That you?" he wrote. I froze for half a second, then typed back. "Yeah, it's me." The next message came slower.
Cool.
"Took guts. You're still my teammate." Something in my chest loosened. Maybe the world wouldn't collapse after all. Maybe, just maybe, people could handle the truth if I gave them the chance. After the stream ended, I sat in silence, watching the replay screen. My own voice sounded so different, not because of pitch or tone, but because of confidence. It wasn't the voice of someone trying to pass or prove anything. It was just me, finally letting the sound of my truth fill the air. Days turned into weeks, and things began to settle. My classmates still didn't know, at least not directly, but whispers had started. One afternoon in the hallway, I overheard someone say my name, or rather, the new one I'd started using online. They didn't mock it. They just said it curiously, like testing the taste of a new word. That night, Leah and I sat at her favorite cafe, the kind that smelled like cinnamon, and quiet conversations. I told her about the stream, about Aaron, about everything. She smiled and said, "You realize this isn't a double life anymore, right? It's one story now." I nodded slowly. It feels strange, like I've been pretending to breathe through half a lung, and now I can finally take in a full breath. We walked home under a sky thick with stars, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was walking through the world pretending to belong. I did belong, not because anyone said so, but because I finally believed it myself. As I reached my door, Leah squeezed my hand and whispered, "You're glowing, you know that?" I laughed softly. It's probably just the streetlights. But deep down, I knew what she meant. The morning light that came through my window felt softer than it used to. I used to dread mornings, the mirror, the expectations, the roles I had to play. But now, the girl staring back at me didn't feel like a stranger or a performance. She was just me. I pulled my hoodie over my head, the same one I'd worn for years, but it felt lighter now. Maybe because I wasn't hiding underneath it anymore. When I reached the campus courtyard, Leah was waiting with 2 coffees. She smiled when she saw me. That knowing smile that had carried me through so much. "Big day?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. "Feels like it. Because today I decided something. I wasn't going to correct people when they saw me differently. I wasn't going to downplay the small changes anymore. The way I spoke, the way I dressed, the name I used online that had slowly begun to feel like my own. Leah squeezed my shoulder. "You've already done the hardest part." "What's that?" "Letting yourself exist." We sat in the courtyard for a long time, talking about nothing and everything. At one point, Aaron passed by, earbuds in, heading to class. He noticed me, paused, and gave a small wave. Nothing awkward, nothing heavy. Just an acknowledgement and a smile that said, "We're good." After classes ended, I walked home slowly, letting the evening wind tangle through my hair. I thought about how it all began, that first late-night game session, the girl avatar, the safety of pretending. I thought about how scared I was to lose the world I'd built if I ever told the truth. But the world hadn't ended. It had expanded. When I got home, I set up my stream again, heart calm this time. The chat was already waiting, familiar names, new ones, all mixed together. I greeted them as I always did, but now it felt different. "Hey everyone," I said, smiling at the screen. "It's me, all of me." Messages poured in, hearts and hellos, and as I read them, I realized something beautiful. I wasn't hiding behind pixels anymore. I was standing in front of them. Later that night, when everything went quiet, I stood before my mirror one last time. No makeup, no filters, no performance. Just a person who had finally stopped running from her own reflection. I leaned closer and whispered, "You made it." The girl in the mirror smiled back, shy, a little uncertain, but real. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a gamer pretending to be a girl. I felt like a girl who had finally won her game. Outside, the city lights flickered against the glass, tiny reflections like stars scattered across the surface. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the weight of every version of myself finally rest in harmony. There was no dramatic ending, no music swelling in the background, just the quiet certainty that tomorrow I'd wake up and live again, exactly as I am.
And that was enough.
I never thought a single notification ping could feel like the first crack in a dam, the one that lets every hidden truth I've buried spill out into the light. That night, my thumbs hovered over the controller, but my mind wasn't in the game. It was on me, or rather, the me I'd never dared to show anyone. I had always joked about it, laughing nervously when friends teased me about wanting to dress like a girl. But the joke had a pulse, a soft, persistent beat in the quietest corners of my life. Tonight, alone in my dimly lit room, that beat was screaming. The screen glowed in shades of violet and silver, reflecting off my glasses and casting a faint halo around the contours of my face. I barely recognized myself. The boy staring back wasn't wrong. He was just incomplete. Something inside me ached, a yearning I had always dismissed as silly, immature, or temporary. But staring at my reflection now, the urge wasn't fleeting. It was undeniable. My chest tightened, my stomach fluttered, and every rational thought I tried to cling to slipped away like sand through fingers. I found the box under my bed almost by accident, though I knew exactly where it was the moment my hand brushed against the corner. My mother's old makeup case, worn but pristine, packed away for years. Lip gloss, eyeliner, blush, mascara. Objects that had seemed like alien relics in my adolescence suddenly felt like keys to a room I'd never dared enter. I touched the lipstick with reverent fingers, hesitating for just a heartbeat before gliding the tip over my lips. The mirror reflected a stranger with familiar eyes, softer, smaller, vulnerable, yet somehow more truthful. I laughed quietly at the absurdity of it, the nervous, shaky laugh that only comes when you're on the edge of something terrifying and intoxicating at the same time. My hands trembled, yet I wanted to tremble, wanted to feel every inch of this new self. I picked up an old hoodie to hide under, then paused. Was this shame or a thrill? Maybe both. I'd always lived behind layers of invisible armor, gamer shirts, baggy pants, headphones permanently glued to my ears. The world saw the casual, the indifferent, the confident boy who laughed too loudly in group chats. But inside, the version of me that had never spoken up, that had always shrunk at the thought of attention, was stirring awake. It started slowly. Eyeliner tracing the curve of my eyelid, mascara painting tiny rivers along my lashes. I held my breath and leaned closer, watching the change ripple over my features. Every stroke of makeup felt like a gentle confession, like whispering secrets into a mirror that didn't judge. My hoodie slipped off my shoulders, revealing a frail chest and a nervous pulse that matched the new rhythm of my heart. I knew I wasn't ready for anyone else to see. Not yet. Not until I could hold myself steady, until the reflection staring back didn't threaten to shatter my carefully constructed world. And so I stayed. Hours melted into one another, the outside world fading until only the soft hum of my computer fan and the distant echo of streetlights existed. My reflection was both a stranger and a promise. I could feel it, a quiet, trembling hope that maybe, just maybe, I could step into this life fully, without shame or hesitation. I didn't notice my phone buzzing until I saw it flash across the desk. A message from my best friend, something trivial about a gaming session tomorrow. My fingers hovered above the keys, and a strange thought gripped me. What if I told them? Would they laugh? Would they stop talking to me? The fear was sharp, a knife pressed to the chest of this fragile new identity. But underneath it, a whisper of courage whispered back, tiny but persistent. What if they accept me? What if I stop hiding? The thought alone was enough to make me smile, small and uncertain, but real. And in that smile, I caught a glimpse of something I hadn't allowed myself to see before, someone I might become, someone I might finally be. And then, as if on cue, the computer screen flickered with a game notification, a reminder that the world I had been hiding behind all my life, fast, loud, digital, was still there. But for the first time, I realized I didn't want to hide behind it anymore. Not completely. Not when a new me waited just beyond the fear, just beyond the hesitation, shimmering faintly in the glow of my own reflection. The morning light always felt harsh in my room. It was as if the sun itself had a grudge against me, stabbing through the blinds to expose everything I wanted to keep hidden. My mirror caught the rays first, scattering them across my desk where a few makeup smudges still lingered from last night. My eyes caught sight of the faint tint on my lips, faded but still there. For a fleeting second, I didn't recognize myself, and that unfamiliarity made me smile. But then reality crept in. My stomach churned with the thought of seeing anyone, of being perceived as him again. The boy version of me suddenly felt like a costume, heavy and ill-fitting. I got up slowly, brushing my hair back, feeling the uneven strands against my fingers. My heart wanted to linger in the glow of last night's softness, but my mind was already tightening the mask back in place. I pulled on my oversized hoodie again, that old armor that swallowed my frame, and stared at the reflection in silence. The girl from last night looked like she'd vanished, leaving behind only the faintest memory, a whisper of eyeliner near my lashes, a faint rosy hue on my cheeks. I hesitated before washing my face, staring at her eyes until the cold water hit and erased her completely. Watching the last trace of her swirl down the drain felt strangely painful, like erasing a dream I wasn't ready to forget. That day was ordinary, in every external way. Breakfast. Small talk. A few jokes over messages with my online friends. But beneath the small talk, a quiet hum followed me everywhere, like background music I couldn't turn off. Every mirror I passed made my stomach twist, not in disgust but in longing. It wasn't about wanting to look pretty, it was about wanting to look true. When I logged into the game that evening, my avatar's feminine design felt different now. I'd made her months ago as a joke, a cute character with pink hair and delicate features, something my teammates teased me about. But now, staring at her on screen, she didn't feel like an escape anymore. She felt like reflection, my reflection, coated in pixels instead of glass.